Welcome to the action from the final round of the 4x4 Mega World Inland Off-Road Championship, the Molopo 500, held at Freiburg. All this action is proudly brought to you by series sponsor 4x4 Mega World. Along with associate sponsors, Propeller Center, Firm Power Tools, Fila Africa, and Calex Audio and Visual Hire. The northwest town of Freiburg played host to the final of the season, a double-header at that as well, meaning full race distance on Friday, followed by a full race distance on Saturday as well, with each of the 2 days scoring full points towards the championship. With just about all the championships still undecided, never before was there a more important event to reach the finish line in one piece and pick up as many points as possible. The early morning in the designated service point showed the crews getting ready and setting up their pits, which they would call home for the next 2 days. One event, 2 heats, more than 40 eager entrants, and of course, their keen pit crews, all of them ready to fight for the top honours in their respective classes and overall championships. Two different loops faced the competitors on the Friday and Saturday's racing sections. On Friday, 2 loops of sandy and rocky terrain lay ahead of the eager guys and girls. Followed by 3 loops of hard and fast terrain on Saturday, totaling a massive 530 kilometers of weekend racing. The customary, lucky for some but not for everyone, draw for the first 6 positions was done, and the race was now underway officially. Malcolm Koch would lead the charge on race day number 1. With all crews welcomed and readied, we now got ourselves ready to roll on down and start things out with the town parade. As the crews made their way to their cars, we introduce you to the beautiful farming town of Freiburg. Freiburg CBD was treated to 40 racing cars in convoy doing a parade on Friday morning before the race got underway. Quite a sight to behold as these monsters made their way through town and back up to the start line at the Freiburg Motor Club. Freiburg has a massive history in off-road and cross-country racing, and the learned spectators were now in for a treat as the latest versions of the buggies, off-road cars, side-by-sides, and even some bespoke entries made their way through to begin what would be an epic journey of over 500 kilometers of off-road racing. For the second time this season, a kiddies fun ride was held at the event, giving the future stars of tomorrow the opportunity to strut their stuff. It was amazing to see the youngsters in action, and all levels of skill were present, and a fun time was had by all. Most of the entries were either sons or daughters of the competitors that would be racing throughout the rest of the weekend. So it wasn't a case of leave the kids at home, it was a case of bring them along and put them out in the dirt, the same dirt that mum and dad would be racing later on. With the kids having their fun and out the way, join us after the break as we go full-time racing for day 1.
Naked Ambition on the bike show this week with Yamaha's MT-09, a second-hand Ducati Hypermotard, and Kyoko's Brough Superior.
Welcome back as we continue our coverage of the Inland Off-Road Championship. Freiburg hosting us for the final time at the Molopo event. Lining up for the start meant sitting in your car, waiting to start and trying to calm those last-minute nerves. All too soon, it was the Ford Ranger of local residents, Malcolm Koch, and his son, Franz Koch, leading the way. Ahead of them, 530 kilometers of rough terrain. Not always easy to open the road in this form of racing, but this wasn't to be the first time for them. They've become pros at picking #1 spot. Only picking up the car less than 6 months ago, meaning he was still in the shakedown stages, making it his own. Another local driver, national competitor Chris Visser, joined in the fray in his FIA spec Toyota Hilux. Chris was hoping for a good result, following some disappointment in his national championship campaign in 2019. Very fast as always though, and surely the car to watch for this event. Dry, dusty, wide open, custom made for Visser. For Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis, another one of the Ford entries, the dry conditions of Freiburg were in stark contrast to the often moist terrain in Harrismith. They set their sights on a class championship though, leading the standings for most of the season, but bad luck into the last two events saw them losing the lead and the top of the log. They would try desperately to pull those numbers back over the next 2 days of the event. For Willem de Tooy and Calvin Riley, one of the finds of the season. They'd all but wrapped up their Class P as well as overall championship, but they were still out to fight it on a high till the end. Even a little kiss of a pole couldn't slow their roll as they still charged to lay down some rock-solid times. Class P this season, becoming the giant killer. This was one of the giants they were trying to slay as well. The pairing of Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner coming into this event. They were the leaders in the Class T Championship. Steady on for the next 2 days though, and they should be able to walk away with what they set out to achieve, nailing down a championship. They only got into the chair at the beginning of this season together as they gelled perfectly with the JCP Steel Supplies Miss Navarra. Ernst, the diminutive driver, has got super fast, and Henry Kerner has done nothing but simply calm him down and turn him into a polished racer that he is. For Dylan Venter and Donovan Lubber, they weren't in with a shout of a championship honours anymore, but that didn't stop them doing what they do best, drive extremely fast throughout the bushy terrain, as can be seen here from their in-car footage as they take us along for a bumpy, gnarly ride. For the fastest growing category in South Africa at the moment, the G2 belonged to Werner and his brother Leon Mostert. They were up next. With Werner well on his way to winning the Class G Drivers' Championship, Leon missed out on a race at the beginning of the season and as such was shooting for second place in the Navigators class title. For Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen, they were up next to try and mix it up for a top 3 position in Class Ts for their championship. Hard charging pretty much sums up their driving style, and we wonder what might have been if not for some mechanical issues they encountered during the early part of the season. Vos has been getting 10% faster every single time he gets out behind a wheel, and it's only a matter of time until he walks away with his big win. Another of the very impressive side-by-sides racing out of the G-Class, Marcus Labuskakny and Neil Putter. They've shown a lot of pace this season, especially in the short sprint qualifying events, but they seem to run out of luck when it comes to the main events and the longer kilometers. Could they end their season on a high and walk away and put those early season problems behind them as a distant memory. A lot of local support for Jannie Visser and son Peter. They'd had an up and down season so far and were hoping to also end on a high and keep all that bad luck out the way. They had some reliability issues that robbed them of amazing results. What would the next 2 days bring for another father and son pairing? See what happens to the Vissers as well as the rest of the competitors? Join us after the break.
The Extreme Festival of Motorsport features both regional and national circuit racing at all of South Africa's best racetracks. South Africa's fastest cars and bikes fight for line honours in no less than 14 categories. This is South Africa's premier motorsport tour. Make sure you catch all this action on Ignition, DSTV, Channel 189.
Coming up this week on Ignition GT, Marius tests the entry level into the BMW 1 Series range. Ford reintroduces the Puma nameplate, but this time in crossover guise. Honda gives their affordable people-moving BRV an update. And we have two brothers giving the Jeep Wrangler a thorough testing.
We continue our coverage from the Molopo final double-header event out in Vryburg as we now focus in on the D33. Francois van der Walt and Gerry Prinsloo. Another up-and-down season saw the pairing second in the Class D Championship in their Toyota Hilux coming into the last event. With double points though up for grabs, they could better their position and take the Class D Championship if all went their way. They'd be giving it everything to try and get the D33 back on top. Another amazing father and son combo rocking in the S11. That was Pete and Benjamin Kotzer. They held the championship lead in Class S, but were also, amazingly enough, in for a shout at the overall production championship as well. Those honours would be amazing if they could take it all the way to the line in a lower powered and lower spec Class S bucky. Could this be the Cinderella story of the season? This championship in the TIORC is peppered with a lot of the former national championship racing and winning single cabs. This time around, the D1 of Lawrence van Beek and Moni Roo were leading contenders in Class D with one hand on the trophy. Lawrence has been there before, but it would be a new experience for new-coming navigator, Moni. No pressure then, Moni. For Aki and Jandre Kruger, another father and son pairing out on the farms. They were hoping to at least consolidate their second place in the Class Championship. And that with the Class E having been one of the most hotly contested classes in the series all season long. Class E has had a very much rebirth in 2019. We go on board then with the third of the Gs. This was G22 in the side-by-sides for Christo Rose and Tion Swart. The local businessman Christo in the top car panel beaters Can-Am Maverick had it all to play for, with Tion in with a shout to become the Class G Navigator champion, and Christo pushing for second on the drivers. Class G side-by-sides in the last 3 years has seen a massive growth, to the point where we're talking about almost 10 cars in the lineup. Tian Statoyan on Nokia in the Propeller Center Toyota Land Cruiser certainly were also still in with a shot at the Class D title, with Tians getting more comfortable with the cruiser as the season wore on. And then the G110 of Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin in the Calix Can-Am Maverick got together as a pairing mid-season and are starting to gel nicely with the car. They were still looking for the elusive win though, but it surely was just going to be a matter of time. So much experience in other vehicles. And for 2019, side-by-sides was the order of the day for the Calix crew. Hein Kruger and Paul Moret had an eventful season, leading the Class D standings at the halfway marker. But things haven't gone their way in the second half of the season. Could their fortunes change here at the Molopo 500? They were certainly hoping so. In preparation for the 2020 season, Stompy Mainhardt entered his brand new developed Toyota Land Cruiser alongside Philip Leroux in the hot seat, doing the navigation work. An extended shakedown, and as every driver and navigator will tell you, there's no better training than racing. For Aldi Erasmus and Koersie Gelderhuys in the lone Polaris were up against it, against the magnitude of Can-Ams, hoping to spoil their party over the next 2 days. Nice to see some different brands coming in what has become almost a Can-Am standard category. On board as we go and see what it looks like. Tight in the cockpit of Louis and Christian Schlebusch, yet another father and son combo. Only in their second time racing with us on the tour this season, they were looking for a good result. Their pace was an unknown factor at this stage, after having scored a DNF at the previous round. Early on though, it certainly seemed they were up to the task. So impressive to see how aggressive new drivers can be in these amazing side-by-side machines. Defending Class E champions Andre Gelderhuys and Victor Fincham weren't in the running to defend their title after a poor season by their high standards, but they were hoping to set things right and at least stand on the podium come the end of play after 500 kilometers of the Molopo. The E4 of Dirk Putzer and Henny Hutting were sitting pretty at this stage, not only leading the Class E championship standings, but also the overall production category. These titles were theirs to lose going into this event, and only 530 kilometers would stand in their way to see what the answer would be. As we said before, Class E could really be something big in 2019. Dolph Totoy and Ben Sutherland in the second Propeller Centre entry were going to give it their all to try and chase the Class E Championship as well, laying in third on the log at the start of this event, so it wasn't out of sight or out of mind, and certainly not out of reach. It seems like the change of colours were a bit of a curse coming into the 2019 tour. For Regan Austin and Warren Foss, they had a season to forget. Plagued by mechanical issues throughout, they were hoping to simply end off the season by seeing the finish line. For Johan Wieser and Jerry Besson, they had a couple of DNFs that sent them to the bottom of the charts, and they also missed out on 2 rounds, so they were in it for nothing else but race honours. No stress about worrying about championship points, and sometimes the big results can come when all pressure is lifted. When you go racing up in Freiburg, sometimes you see a couple of crazy locals coming out, and that's exactly what we saw from Frickie Steyn and Konrad Mentz, another local crew who came out to play. For Jan and Julian Rus, also a father and son combination coming out to play in the older category Class Fs. We seem to have seen a lot of them in the Inland Off-Road Championship Series. And they came all the way from Gauteng for the season-ending marathon event, hoping to put up a good show and bring one of the older Hiluxes to the finish line once again. Evergreen racer Henry Zamatten with lady navigator Alicia Potgieter pitted their near standard Ford Ranger up against the tough route, hoping to come out tops. This vehicle had competed and completed the retro roof earlier in the season, so the F69 definitely had some pedigree coming into the event. For the F1, Pinocchio, as the oldest car in off-road racing is lovingly referred to by its owner, that's Oom de Villiers. He was giving the Bakkie its swan song race before retiring it to its resting place of honor on their farm. This was to be the last outing for the Bakkie, and a well-deserved rest was definitely to follow. John Berta and Jacques Sobiech were out in the ex-Hutting Ford Ranger in only their second outing as well. They were hoping to see the finish line come Saturday race afternoon. Always an ask to enter your first big event and make it the Molopo 500. Essentially a marathon event held over 2 racing days on a weekend. The ladies racing team of Carleen Croshaw and Marina van Schalkwyk were heading up their Class B charge once again, also hoping to see the finish line on a Saturday afternoon. On the season though, they have been extremely consistent and can hold their heads high, looking to be one of the top crews in the Bs. The Van Schalkwyks do dominate Class B, and hot on the heels of the ladies, it was the B100. This was the rest of the family in the form of Sifi Van Schalkwyk and Arthur Croshaw, making Class B literally an all-family affair across the 2 cars. And finally, the F7, hoping to break his string of bad luck, was Ahmed Jada, partnered by local businessman Keith Smith. They were to be our last crew heading out into the fields. At the end of day number 1, which pretty much marked the halfway marker of the event, we'll call it heat number 1. Chris Visser walked away with the big win ahead of the Cox. That was Malcolm on the wheel and France on the notes. Force Prinsloo and André Vermeulen weren't too far behind in 3rd place, with Van Tonda and Redlinghuis into a number 4. De Walt and Prinsloo were just after that. Christo Rose did a great job in his side-by-side to get up to a number 8, putting himself ahead of Putter and Hutting. Marcus Labuskakny and Neil Putter also dropped 1 or 2 positions to end off in the number 10 position. The Ds, Tiens de Toy and On Nokia, were looking very strong. Join us after the break as we pick up on day 2 race action from the Molopo 500.
This is Car vs. America, and we're in Ocean City, Maryland. Check out H2OI, the most ticketed car show in America. This year, it's officially been canceled. But everyone still is coming here. We're trying to figure out why.
Why come to Ocean City?
It's H2O.
But it's canceled this year.
No, it's not canceled.
Have you seen what's going on?
This week, we are at VDAP Campfest.
The reason I do this is because I love the car scene. I love the people, love the gents, and like you see, look at all around us. We're filled by hobbyists all around.
I finally get to spin for the first time. And Swoop is checking up on an injured viewer.
Where you go? You going to drive? Are you driving? You can't go to the back.
Catch Classic Car Culture only on Ignition DSTV channel 189.
Welcome back once again to the town of Vryburg, hosting us for the double-header round that ends off the TIORC Championship for 2019. The Molopo 500 heat number 1, which was essentially day number 1, took us to the halfway marker. So once again, everyone had to get up out of their weary beds and get themselves locked and loaded for the very last time. It was the last and probably the most important driver's briefing of the season to make sure everyone knew exactly what was going to go down.
Hi everybody, Dolf de Toy. I'm from Prop Center. We are an aviation company, proud to be involved in the Inland Off-Road Racing Series this year. We had a fairly good 2019, couple of breakdowns. We're still in the run, enjoying helping the sport. It's really good for us and we are very excited to 2020 season coming up. Today's going to be the last race. We're still both in the run for championship podium finishes. Hope everything goes well. No mechanicals needed for the day. All we need is good luck and the blessings from our God our Father. Thanks.
Tians and Navigator Arnold. We had the last race of the year. We got the 200 yesterday. We ended up second. We got a 300 Ks for today. So from our side with the cruiser and the Prop Center team and good support from N1 4x4. We hope to have a good day today and everything goes well. Let's see what happens today.
We are racing as Top Car Racing. We are panel shop here in Vryburg, Top Car panel beaters. And yeah, this is the boss of the place next to me. So yeah, we are hoping to keep the name up and going for the next year that's coming in the region. And yeah, we are hoping to get our sponsors. We have Top Car Towing that's also helping us, Top Towing, Jan Rose, and all of the people that's helping us through the year. Thank you for your support and for all of our supporters outside. Thank you.
So some had just joined us for the final event. Some had been along for the entire ride, meaning they had racked up well over 2,000 kilometers of racing throughout the 2019 championship. So it was one more time onto the breach, dear friend, and everyone getting locked and loaded. The medics were heading up into the sky to make sure everything started smooth and fresh, and hopefully they weren't going to have to touch down once again. Once again, though, it was going to be Chris Visser that headed up the charge. He was looking to nail down the final victory of the season, and a driver with so much confidence. He has been a former national championship winner. He's won out in the desert as well as going out and racing on the fronts of Dakar. Force Prinsloo came out charging as well as this man. That was Malcolm Koch. Koch definitely wanted to go up against it. There's a bit of an in-house battle that goes on when you go up to Vryburg. Everyone wants to win on their hometown soil. Jacques Van Tonder, he had really been joining the party this season as well, and it was cool to see what he was going to be able to do. A little bit of bad luck, but Van Tonder is aggressive, and he's a charger. Sammy Redlinghuis always has his hands full, just trying to tame the beast. One by one, the crews headed on out to take on the final 250-odd kilometers of the last event of the season. For some of the cars, they had just come right. For the rest of the cars, they had been battling mechanical after mechanical and trying to just nail down a consistent drive throughout the season. At the end of the day, though, everyone knows there is one last day, and then the cars can get a full rebuild. The mechanics and the service crews get around about 3 months to prepare the cars and go forward into the 2020 season, where a lot of the crews will also make this slightly different choice to upgrade and get some new wheels underneath them and try and buy some speed, as we say, in the world of motor racing. For Willem, it's been an amazing journey watching this guy come right. Some said getting him into a Class P was a little bit of a step backwards, but he has definitely run the numbers and proven that a lower and smaller car can sometimes beat the highly developed Class T and Class FIAs. There was a nice spread of results as well coming in from day number 1 at the Molopo 500, as all eyes were on the competitors that had one hand on the trophy. It was going to be interesting to see if they could take it all the way to the line, as nervous crews, navigators and spectators held their breath for just 250 Ks to see what was going to go down. For Stefan Ilhoff and Joppy Brunette, the G16 was all kinds of entertaining. They tried as they might, but in the end, conditions proved too much for the plucky little side-by-side. They'll be back, however, next season, and we wish them the best of luck on a speedy return. One of the older and original Can-Ams sits a little bit higher, a little bit more top-heavy, and a little bit more of a handful in the tighter tech. They did, however, boost the numbers and get us dangerously close to that magical 10 entry in the G-Class. For Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner, it was a tale of woe. After not finishing Heat 1 on Friday, bad luck struck them once again with a DNF, that's a did not finish. That's our language that we use for the sad part of motorsport. And with that, 0 points and a goodbye to their class championship hopes. It'll be a goodbye from the season as well, though, as we will no doubt see them as top competitors challenging for the 2020 title. For the G13, a good finish on Friday put the team in good spirits, but mechanicals on the Saturday hassled them and put paid to their race in heat number 2. For the Calyx crew of Glenn and Craig, it was all or nothing at this stage after a good run early on. It came to an untimely and abrupt halt as they hit a gate post, ripping off their right rear suspension. Some things can be fixed out in the bush, and some things certainly can't. A sad case of what might have been. For the Mostards, they'd already nailed down their national title, and for the F20, it was just survival time, as not only some of the joints and wishbones on the vehicle were starting to rattle, but certainly the bones of the driver and navigator at this stage as well would certainly have been feeling it. Thinking his run of bad luck was at an end and still having a fair amount of hassles throughout the race, they were hoping to turn their fortunes around. For Ahmed Jodda and Keith Smith, unfortunately, they had to accept their fate as they were time barred at the end of the first racing loop on Saturday. Just doesn't get better for this luckless crew, even at the last time of asking. They even lost their spare wheel along the way. That's how bad things truly got. It was a fond and final farewell to Pinocchio, the evergreen Datsun. Unfortunately, time also caught up with them at the Molopo 500, and they didn't make the cutoff time at the end of the first racing loop. But retire at the farm and rest well, our old friend. For our locals, Ricky Stain and Conrad Mantz, they struggled from the get-go. Having loads of hassles on Friday already didn't bode well for them, and they finally had to withdraw due to terminal mechanical issues. Always cool to have them out racing with us, and as soon as they have figured out the gremlins, they'll be back for sure. Big pressure on the E4 crew for Putter and Hutting, leading the Class E and overall production championship the whole season. They only had to maintain their position in the race after Friday, but in a near Hollywood movie-style script, they broke down on Saturday, and subsequently, while still leading the Class E title, they dropped out of contention for the overall as well. For the T77 of Alex and Alan Van Rooyen, the Molopo 500 proved too much for the brothers from Limpopo, and they didn't see the finish line on Saturday. They would hope to return in the 2020 season for better and more consistent results. For the D33, it was a case of yet another DNF for the hapless crew, former champions at that. Their Class D championship aspirations went begging, proving once again that to finish first, you must finish. The D33 crew have form though, and they will bounce back. Behind Kruger and Paul Moret, after encountering a magnitude of mechanical issues on Friday, the team worked throughout most of the evening to get the car ready for Heat 2 on Saturday. They gave it their all on Saturday. However, a lapse in concentration saw them meeting up with a rather large tree. The resultant damage was sufficient to end their day right there and right then. Also hoping to get to the finish, but it was not to be as mechanical issues brought them to a grinding halt. So it was another crew out of the race. Unfortunately, marathon races always see a high attrition rate, and for Buerta and Sobiec, they added their names to the woeful list. For Stompie Meinhardt and Philip Leroux, their extended test session and shakedown unfortunately ended in sadness for their first outing. They recorded a DNF, which certainly showed the pace of the vehicle and the crew that they would be ones to watch out for in 2020. For the B100 crew of Super Van Skalkbeek and Arthur Croshaw, getting to grips with their new car after selling the Baja Bug, they were definitely ending their season on a low point. Saturday, and a rare DNF for the B100 saw them also step out of the race. In a season of nightmares for Regan Austin and Warren Foss, they were once again plagued with mechanical issues throughout, and the ominous signs of smoke pouring out of the exhaust were yet again another sign that it had all gone wrong. Later on, the motor completely let go, and that was that. Join us after the break to see who survived the final stages of the Molopo 500.
Welcome to another episode of Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and review show where this week we're taking a look at a range of new releases. We have two chic super minis from France, the new Renault Clio and Peugeot 208, as well as the latest version of the popular Nissan Juke. That's Auto Mundial, only on Ignition, DSTV channel 189.
Money makes the world go round, or does it? Business Day TV's Money Talks tackles financial topics that are hard but necessary.
It is possible to be debt-free. And when we say debt-free, we're not saying people will not have even one skoloto. No.
Join Gerald Mr. G as he unpacks questions about money you didn't know you needed answers to.
Can black tax cost you your credit profile?
That's Money Talks on Business Day TV at these times.
For all things motoring, keep it locked down to Ignition this March. Mechanics and engineers battle it out in weaponized vehicles to see who will be crowned the last car standing.
Massive hit! Thank you, Lord!
Expect action, loud crashes, and as the name suggests, a great deal of carnage. Two-wheel fans are in for a treat as Ignition expands its biking content. Orange County Choppers follows the legendary Paul Turtle and his team as they reach new extremes, resulting in mind-blowing bikes and, of course, state-of-the-art drama.
What's your problem?
You hired me to do a job. I don't know what exactly that is anymore.
For an in-depth look into some of the finest veteran, vintage and classic cars on the local scene, don't miss the brand new season of Garage Gold.
Ah, good cars, man. Good cars.
You join us in the dying embers of the fire that was the 2019 TIORC Championship as the final lap and final day of racing at the Molopo 500 was slowly unwinding. Coming home in last place overall, but persevering and winning Class B, the ladies did a fantastic job. Croshaw and Van Skalkbeek bringing it home and getting the job done, and they also clinched their Class B Championship along the way. Great job, ladies. Johan Visser and Jerry Bisson in the E39 were the final entry and final finishes in the production car class. They had to consolidate that, putting up the fastest time in Class E on Saturday as well, but it was too little, too late, as they lost time on Friday, and that really cost them. A good run on Friday for Marcus Labuschagne and Neil Putter in the G11 turned into their worst nightmare on Saturday, as they persevered though and still clinched 14th overall and second in Class G. A great effort to end off their season after so many issues during the 2019 championship chase. Mad Max, as the car has been known because of that big plow on the front of it, is definitely to be reckoned with going forward into 2020. In the early season, it was aggression that caused a lot of the problems for Labuschagne. He seems to have smoothed that out and become a polished racer. After an amazing season in 2018 for Andre Geldenhuys and Victor Fincham, they just could not repeat the magic once again in the E1. It was simply not their year, and even the Molopo 500 threw everything at them. But they kept on fighting and ended with a final third place in Class E for the race. First time out in the series for the G66, Peter Walter and Sean de Villiers have a lot of pedigree, but they are not used to driving this kind of terrain and with these kind of competitors around them. They found it going a little bit tougher than they expected, but they still put in a good showing to at least make it to the finish line at the end of Saturday. For Walter and de Villiers, they should be running top threes at every event when they join the full tour in 2020. The F69, relatively stock Ford as we like to say, of Zamatin and Potgieter, looked a little bit worse for wear at the end of the grueling 530 kilometers of the Molopo 500, but a class victory was theirs as they rocked it with a win in Category F, and it also gave them an 11th overall, showing just how high the attrition rate was across the rest of the racing classes. For Aki and Jean-Andre Kruger in the E7, they also had their fair share of issues, but they did manage a respectable second place in Class E, and also brought another Class E inside of the top 10, 10th overall in fact for the racing weekend. Rudolph Dutoy and Ben Sutherland, they ended off their season with a class win, so they'd be happy with that. Also moved them up to second place in Class E for the championship. Now for the title next season. Dutoy and Sutherland have definitely got a taste for what it takes to bring it all the way to the top of the pile, and they simply have one more step to make to get the big number ones. The D11 crew, after riding shotgun for brother Dolph in the sister propeller center car, they ended up second in Class D, also clinching the second place in the Class D championship along the way. You'd swear the brothers planned it that way. Congrats to Tians de Choi and On Lokia, bringing the D11 dangerously close to the top. Winning Class D by just over 2 minutes after 2 days of racing was enough for Lance Van Beek and Marnie Roux to clinch the class championship for the pairing, and competition looks good for next season as well. D1 remains D1 for 2020. Yanni and Peter Visser, after battling with fueling problems, seemingly causing them to overheat the fuel pump, they had to settle for a second place in Class S and also in the Class Championship for the season. They'll line up once again in 2020 and do it all over again with one hope: to turn the S2 into an S1. Low flying in the sky, low flying on the ground. Christo Rose and Tion Swart really had a strong weekend. A good win for the pairing after putting a great show together on Friday, some issues on Saturday, but in the end, a great 5th overall in the process to boot. For the youngsters, Dylan Fenter and Donovan Lover in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, they showed true speed and determination throughout the season. A couple of podiums definitely put them up there, and the crew are looking strong as major competitors going forward into 2020. Consistency has been their one downfall. Speed certainly has not. On board there quickly with the Toyota crew just to see how busy it does get out there. Testing tight, hard terrain. The surprise package of the season, improving with every race and coming into the Molopo 500 leading the Class S Championship with the misfortune of Dirk Butter in the E4 recording a DNF on the second loop. The father and son combo now also clinched the overall production championship. A job well done to Pete and Benjamin Kotzer. A true surprise package, and a crew that just never let it go. Brought home as many points at every single race as they could, and they're going to be rewarded highly. Charging as hard as ever, and you wouldn't expect anything else from Willem de Tooy and Calvin Riley. They took the Class P win to not only win the Class Championship, but also the overall special category in their giant killing, CRT. More often than not, they are seen mixing it up with competitors of much higher caliber machines, and if he ever makes the big jump up into a higher horsepower car, watch out. The T8, father and son pairing of Malcolm and Frans Koch. After an epic dice up front between the leading Class T competitors, they ended up 3rd in class and 3rd in the overall production championship, fighting for the lead the whole way. Malcolm and Frans will be out for blood in 2020. Now that they've really come to terms with their new Ford machine, they can go out and chase for wins every single time. The T41 of Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen were also in the mix up front. Not an inch was given or received, coming home second in both Class T and production category overall by less than a minute, which was astounding considering the massive distance of 530 kilometers raced throughout the 2 days of the Molopo 500. Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen are definitely players. The drive of the day, though, came from the crew of Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis in the T5. They started behind Malcolm Koch as well as Prinsloo, and the youngsters drove like demons to clinch the Class T and overall production victories. And with that, also the Class T Championship at the TIORCs for 2019. Your champions are Jacques Van Tonder and Sammy Redlinghuis. And for Chris Visser, he was never beaten the entire event, although he was competing in the non-championship class, FIA class. He took the unofficial race victory, fastest on both days, and capped off his racing year in the fashion that he likes to celebrate. Wins, wins, wins. Congratulations to the final victory of the season to Chris Visser and Hugo de Bruin. As we enjoy the final shots of Chris heading into the finish line, let's take a moment, catch our breath, and review the results as we break down the classes. So the final flag of the season, let's look at the category breakdowns from the Molopo 500. In the Class Ps, Willem de Tooy and Calvin Riley. Class B's all about Carleen Croshaw and Marina van Skalkwijk. And for the championship in the Class A's, Van Pletsen took it, and in the Class B's, Carleen Croshaw, no big surprise. In the Drivers' Championship overall, Willem de Tooy takes it ahead of Van Pletsen, Croshaw, Gavea, Smit, van Skalkwijk and McInerney. Into the Molopo 500 then, Visser and de Bruin take the win in Invitational International class. Class T, Jacques Van Tonder and Redlinghuis. And Class F, Henry Zematten and Alicia Potkieter. In Class D, it was Lawrence van Veek and Marnie Roux taking the win ahead of de Tooy and Nokia. And Class E, Rudolf de Tooy and Ben Sutherland winning out against Oki and Jandre Kruger. In Class G for the side-by-sides, Christo Rose and Tion Swart get their win ahead of Walter and de Villiers, and Class S, Pete and Benjamin Kutzer get it ahead of Yanni and Peter Visser. Molopo 500 overall went to Chris Visser and Hugo de Bruin, beating out Jacques Van Tonder and Redlinghuis, with Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen not far off, taking a well-deserved third, beating Malcolm and Frans Koch along the way. For the Class T Drivers' Championship, Jacques Van Tonder gets the win ahead of Vos Prinsloo, and for the Class S Drivers' Championship, Piet Kotzer takes it ahead of Yanni Visser. In Class Ds, it was Lawrence van Veek winning out ahead of Tians de Tooy, and Class E, Dirk Putter ahead of Rudolf de Tooy. Class F Drivers' Champion, this time around, 2019 belongs to PM de Villiers, and for the Class Gs, Werner Mostert is once again the man in the side-by-sides. For the overall production vehicles Drivers' Championship, Piet Kotzer gets it in his Class S ahead of Dirk Putter, Yanni Visser, Lawrence van Veek, de Tooy, Kruger and Van Tonder. So that is it for the season, as well as the doubleheader, which really was a perfect way to end what has been a miracle of a season. Every single round we've seen record entries across the board, and everyone who's been in it to win it has been well looked after. Firm were once again giving away some amazing trophies and some tools. The kids who joined us for the final event also get their chance to shine and stand up on the podium, and then the rest of the competitors who went out and raced and, more importantly, survived the Molopo 500, got their just desserts and rewards. It's been an amazing TIORC season, brought to you by 4x4 Mega World along with their associate sponsors, and no doubt we will see an average entry of well over 55 of these amazing crews, drivers and vehicles at every single event when we go into the 2020 season. Right now, all we can say is everyone who joined us for the party that is TIORC, the Inland Off-Road Championship Series. Been great having you along for the ride. Keep those smiles on your dials the whole way through the off-season, spin the spanners, and come back hungry for more racing. Thank you once again to all the competitors who really make up the Inland Off-Road Championship Tour. Mark your calendars, 2020 is on the way. 15th of February, TIORC 1 at the Excelsior will mark the beginning of a new dawn.